allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, anybody here for public input? Public input? Nobody here for public input, then we'll move on to review and approve the accounts agenda.
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, opposed? All right, then move on to the consent agenda. Item A is approve the 6/16/25 council meeting minutes. B is approve the 7/21/25 council meeting minutes. C is adopt the park master plan for Community Park and River's Edge North Park. D, approve a firefighter appointment. E, approve the final payments for the 2022 street project.
Move to approve as presented.
Do we have a second?
Yes.
A second. Motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, passed unanimous. Okay, the regular agenda item is the 2024 audit review and funds transfer.
Is the clicker or is the computer?
I don't have a clicker.
I can,
but
I can run the computer, yeah. Take it.
You know what? I'll let you just sit here
Even better.
and I'll go over there. I'm good. No, that's fine. That way it works better. Can you give me
All right. Well, good evening. My name is Justin McGraw. I'm with CDS, the city's auditors, and I'm here tonight to present. You got the wrong year.
How did I manage that?
Since last year's.
Well, geez, here I thought I was doing so good. Sorry.
I can go over the paper copy too.
Okay, you want to start and I'll get you this. Go ahead. You can sit right here. I'll be
Okay.
fine.
All right, so I got, we'll get the right year's presentation up here, but you should have a paper copy in front of you, and we have a few different copies we provided tonight. The thicker bound document, that's going to be your audited financial statements themselves. The thinner bound document with the cover is a management letter. It's really a letter from us as auditors to you at the council level to let you know how that audit went. And then the presentation we're trying to bring up with the paper copy you have with no cover is the format we're going to follow tonight. So going through that format, and as I'm going through, if you have any questions, please feel free to stop me and interrupt me, and we can answer them right there on the spot. But looking at the presentation, am I not talking loud enough into this thing? Okay. Pages 1 and 2 of the presentation tonight, it's a description of what our independent auditor's report is. A summation of what's all in there. It outlines the parties or responsibilities of both parties, you as the city, us as your auditor. And it explains the intent of our audit, which is to determine if your financial statements are free from material misstatement, the standards we follow to come to that conclusion. And really the big takeaway is right there at the top on page 1 is that we do feel your financial statements are presented fairly in our opinion. They can be relied upon for gauging performance of the city as well as for future decision-making purposes.
Share side on the wall. No? You keep going.
Okay, I'll keep going. On page 3, we jump into the numbers. So looking at the statement of net position, look at this 2 points in time, December 31st, 2023 and December 31st, 2024. So you can see where some of the changes happened in those balances between the 2 years. And starting at the top, current assets, these will be items like your cash balances, accounts receivable, amounts owed to you from other governments. And you did have a pretty healthy increase in your current assets in 2024. A lot of that is due to your cash balances. The utility funds are cash flowing very well. They're bringing enough cash to cover operations, let alone capital needs, and even the debt service needs of those funds. So you're seeing an increase due to those cash balances within the utility funds. The general fund also had a pretty healthy increase in its cash balances that's contributing to the increase you're seeing here in 2024. And that's largely due to just the results of operations. Revenue being brought in is covering the expenditures that are being incurred by that general fund. And then right below it, non-current assets. These will be, think your infrastructure, buildings, equipment, those physical assets, and they stayed relatively steady between the year. You had a slight increase as the wear and tear, the depreciation on your current outstanding assets was offset by the additions that happened in 2024. Then at the bottom half, current liabilities. These would be, I think, your routine bills. So accounts payable, salaries, wages payable, unearned revenue is another item that is included in those balances. Excuse me. And that's kind of what you see with the change. That decrease you're seeing in 2024 is due to you had unearned revenue for the state public safety aid. You see that at the end of 2023, you didn't have really any expenditures to use those funds. You incurred those expenditures in 24 and recognized that revenue within the general fund itself. And then your long-term liabilities. These are your pension liability, other post-employment benefit liabilities, and then your debt balances. So bonds, notes, those types of things, leases. And you didn't have any new debt in 2024. So the expectation was those balances would go down as you made your regularly scheduled payments on your outstanding debt. That did happen. And then your pension liability did decrease as well as PERA, or the Public Employee Retirement Association, saw an overall decrease in their pension liability. And then you saw your proportionate share of that as well in 2024. And then at the very bottom, net position. So if you could sell the assets of the city and pay off all your debts, this is kind of what you'd have left over. Like net investment in capital assets, you did have an increase as your debt balances went down and your capital asset balances went up. But overall, you had a pretty healthy increase in that net position, which is kind of the trend we've been seeing over the past several years within the city. And this is all funds, all operations, all rolled up in one slide at one point in time between the 2 years. Technology,
Just a quick question for you.
it's not cooperating.
Vic has a question.
Let's have a quick question for you. I'm just wondering, what do you attribute the difference in pension liabilities, where it's less in 2024 than it was in 2023?
So there's a couple different reasons for that. Your pension liability is very dependent on actuarial assumptions for members of the plan. So, and not only that, but the expected performance of PERA's investments. So they did have a greater return on their investments in 2024 compared to 23. So they're about 90% funded here at the end of 2024 compared to the mid to low 80s in the prior year, and even less going back a few more years. So they've increased some of the required contribution amounts. They've had a better return on their investments. And that's really what we're seeing through PERA's pension liability. Yeah. Okay, so I got this back up and running.
It is a touchscreen.
Oh, look at that. Okay. All right, so moving on to so we looked at the statement of net position on the previous slide. Again, it covers all your funds, all your operations, all activities in that one slide. Now here we look at the individual funds of the city, starting with the general fund and your cash and investment balances. We look at this not only in 24, but the prior 4 years, so you can see where those trends have been throughout the year. And this is one I mentioned a little bit ago that had a pretty healthy increase in that cash balance. The general fund has a lot of capital activity recorded in it. Last year there was a big land purchase for the amphitheater recorded in that general fund. So the cash went out the door, you bought the land, but you didn't get your reimbursement yet back from the state of Minnesota. So that finally came in 2024, and that helped recoup some of that cash that was used on that capital activity. And then looking at the operations or the activity of the general fund. So you get your revenues, expenditures, and the overall change, or your overall fund balance, excuse me. And you see here revenues exceeded expenditures, which was another part of that increase in the cash that you were seeing on the previous slide. And we'll look at the revenues and expenditures in a little more detail in the coming slides. But one thing on here we do want to touch on is that overall fund balance number. One metric we use as auditors is look at how many months worth of expenditures are sitting in that fund balance. The state auditor recommends 3 to 5. Maybe we're a little bit more conservative. We usually recommend about 6 months worth of expenditures in that fund balance. And the reason for that is a lot of your big revenue items in the general fund come in about 6 months apart. Property taxes are about 6 months apart. Now that you're getting a large amount of local government aid, that usually come in about 6 months apart. So if you have 6 months sitting in that fund balance, you usually have a pretty nice reserve there for any unexpected costs or delays or remittances in those large revenue items. And you're currently sitting at about 9 months. So it's a pretty healthy fund balance inside that general fund. And as promised, we're looking in greater detail at the revenues of the general fund. And we look at this by source. Where does the general fund get the money that it's spending to provide services to the citizens? And property taxes historically have been your largest source of revenue. That's no change here in 2024. You did have an increase in your property taxes that was largely reflected in your levy, so it wasn't a surprise to see those taxes go up. Intergovernmental revenue, that did take a big decrease as we recognize that reimbursement from the state for that land purchase in 2023, you didn't have it at that level in 2024. And the other sources of revenue, again, that took a decrease from 23 into 24. You did have a reimbursement from Xcel Energy for a street project in 23. You didn't have those large one-time items here in 2024. And then looking at the expenditures.
A quick question.
Yeah.
You do other cities? Do they rely as heavily on taxes as we do? I mean, almost 74% is tax income.
Yeah, most cities, tax revenue is their main revenue, especially for the general fund. Maybe some of the special revenue funds, like an EDA fund, would have a higher reliance on tax revenue. But they also get more local government aid than City of Waite Park. And I know that's with the change in that funding formula, you've seen your allocation go up of that local government aid. But more cities are heavily.
Microphone.
Oh, sorry. So yeah, most cities use local government aid. They're more dependent on their local government aid from the state to fund operations within the general fund. Obviously, you've historically not gotten that level of local government aid. That did increase with the change in the funding formula. But property taxes I'd say, God, I bet you every single one of my clients in the general fund is that main source of revenue. Yep. And looking at the expenditures on page 7, so all those revenues that are being brought in through those different sources, where are they being spent? And we look at this by department. Which department has the higher amount of expenditures? Public safety, public works historically have been those departments. That's no change in 2024. You did have some changes, though, in the proportion of those departments amongst the entire general fund. Public safety, you saw a decrease in those, really your capital costs in the public safety department. That's driving that decrease in the overall department share of the expenditures. Public works, a lot of street projects going on that are recorded in that public works capital outlay department. So you saw an increase there with those expenditures. In that culture and rec department, 2023 is kind of the outlier with that big land purchase. So it's a little bit higher in 23. You didn't have really a whole lot of capital activity in the culture and rec department within the general fund, at least related to the amphitheater. So you see that 24 number kind of comes back down to pre-2023 amounts. And then moving away from the general fund to the other funds of the city, starting with your special revenue funds. Special revenue funds typically are set up to serve a specific purpose, and the hope is that they're self-sustaining. The first one we have on here is the local sales tax fund. This is the original local sales tax fund. Had a pretty healthy increase in that fund balance. Sales tax revenues continue to come in at a pretty healthy rate within that fund. There's transfers out of that fund to support debt service needs, capital needs around the city. But overall, you had an increase in that fund balance. Parkland development, that one had a slight decrease in 24, just with improvements made at parks around the city. You're seeing some of that fund balance being spent down for those improvements. And then more special revenue funds on page 9 here. Public safety facility sales and use tax. So that's the new sales and use tax, and that one had about 6 months worth of activity in 2023. Now in 2024, you have a full year's worth of collections on that. And that money is really sitting there accumulating for that project and the eventual debt service that's going to come with the debt to fund that project. And then the TIF districts that have some capital activity, as they have funds available for improvements to be made within those districts around the city. And then I talked about the public safety facility sales and use tax fund. We also have a capital project fund set up to account for all the expenditures, all the funding sources for that project. And it did have a decrease in fund balance as it hadn't received its debt proceeds yet. Those came here in 2025. No transfers were made from the special revenue fund, the sales and use tax special revenue fund. So it's kind of spending that fund balance until those funding sources get in to that fund in 2025. And you had a lot of engineering, a lot of planning activity in 24 in preparation for construction here in 2025. And then moving away from the governmental activities to the business type activities of the city, starting with the water fund. So your cash and investment balances, similar to what we showed with the general fund, that they've been trending upwards. And if you had a chance to look at your cash flow statement, or if you have a chance to look at your cash flow statement, you'll see it's really driven by cash provided by operations and investments. So your investments also did very well here in 2024. So they're covering the cost of operations, any capital needs, and the water fund did have, debt service requirements in '24, and it was covering all those and still generating cash. And then on page 12, the operations of the water fund, looking at your revenues and expenditures, you saw an increase in that overall net position of the fund. Your revenue is fairly consistent between the years, but expenses increased in a few different areas, personnel costs, supplies, professional services, all those areas saw increases, which kind of ate into that increase in your net position a little bit within that water fund. And I touched on the debt of the water fund, and this slide, we use this slide to look at the fund's ability to make its debt payments just with cash provided by operations. So we remove some of those non-cash items like the depreciation expense, which is really just the wear and tear of the infrastructure and equipment, and look at, okay, how is it generating cash, or is it generating enough cash to make those debt payments? And you can see here, it's historically done that, and it's looking really good here in 2024. This payment you made in '24 was the last payment on that debt, so now you won't have those debt service requirements within the fund going forward in 2025, or until if you were to issue more debt. Then the sewer fund. So the sewer fund, this is a great slide to look at because you can see the steady increase of that sewer fund over the years. Again, cash provided by operations, the investments within the fund are performing very well, and you're seeing that increase in cash. And it's probably a good reflection on staying on top of those sewer rates, water and sewer rates. If you can maintain those water and sewer rates, and especially in the sewer fund specifically, with your largest expense being the city of St. Cloud and those contracted services, you can build up that reserve for future capital needs, repairs, replacements, those types of things. And looking at the activity in the sewer fund on page 15, similar story to the water fund. Revenue did increase slightly in 2024. With those rates being set slightly above the cost of those contracted services. I think the city of St. Cloud, I think it was about $1.1 million is what it cost in 2024 for those sewer services. So maintaining those rates at a level where you're not only recouping those costs, but the eventual repairs that are going to need on your side of the infrastructure will help that sewer fund maintain that healthy balance. And stormwater fund. So this one has a little bit less cash than the other two. It's got a little bit less activity than the other two as well. But you did see an increase in cash in '24. You had some minor capital improvements made with the system, some repairs, but not at the level we saw in 2023, which really ate into your cash balance. And if you look at page 17 here, you can see that that gray bar, the expense bar, really went down compared to in '24 compared to 2023. So your revenues went up, expenses went down, you're seeing that increase in those cash balances. And that was the extent of the numbers I was going to cover tonight. In addition to auditing the balances of the city, we also audit compliance, and we audit compliance with a few different rulemaking bodies. So the first one being the state of Minnesota, we look at the the city's compliance with state statutes for things such as contracts and bidding, conflicts of interest, depository of public funds. We're happy to report we came across no issues of non-compliance, which usually tells us a couple different things as auditors. Is one, that your team here knows what those laws are, and two, they're making sure they're being followed. So hats off to everybody at City Hall or now the Public Works facility for making sure that happens. Then we look at internal control, so how financial information flows through the city from the time maybe a bill would come in the mail to the time the check to pay that bill goes out in the mail. And we have one item here, and if you sat through my presentation before, you probably heard me talk about it. It's auditor prepared financial statements. So the products you have in front of you are all derived from your financial records, but we do put them in that format with the required note disclosures, required supplementary information. So we have to disclose that to you as well. And then I touched on this a little bit earlier too, but in addition to the audited financial statements, we issue what we call a management letter. But it's a letter from us as auditors to you at the governance level, let you know how the audit went. Any difficulties we encounter, any changes in your accounting practices, any disagreements we have with your team here, and we're happy to report none. And we come in and we do ask a lot of your team here within City Hall But it's not just them. We ask a lot of your vendors, the state, the county, your banks, your engineers. So everybody was very helpful and gave us the information we needed to be here tonight to deliver this audit report. So we just want to make sure we thank everybody who was involved in this process. Then on the last page is my contact information. So if you are looking through this in your free time and you think I should ask Justin this, or I wish I would have asked him that, feel free to call, email, or if you're in Litchfield, stop by our office. So does anybody have any questions right now?
Good news.
Perfect. Well, I hope everybody heard me, and thanks for being patient with us as we work through the IT stuff. There we go. All right, well, thank you again.
Thank you. Okay, then we will move on to the funds transfer.
We have to still approve this 2024
Oh.
audit and fund transfer.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the audit review and funds transfer?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, then we'll move on to item B, fund transfer.
I'd just like to make a comment here. I would really like to see these ahead of time rather than just sit down and have it presented to us.
The funds transfer was in the,
There's two separate ones.
right. I remember reading, I don't know which funds transfer he's talking about, but I remember reading in the,
There's another item on here for that. Yeah. We can talk to Justin. Sometimes it's hard to be able to send out the information without giving you the explanations of everything ahead of time. But we certainly can work on doing that if that's something that you'd want. But just know that you might have a lot more questions if you don't have explanations on it. So it's kind of like the cart before the horse or the chicken and the egg.
It's
Yeah.
just really important to be able to read it and understand it ahead of time.
Yep.
So that his presentation makes a lot more sense.
Duly
I
noted.
would appreciate
Yeah.
that.
Do you want to touch on the next one, Carla? What needs to be done? It's just a transfer. Well, you had a transfer on, yeah, and then, but then there's another,
there's a Parkland one I read. 700.
with the geotax abatement bonds?
Oh, that one, okay.
I didn't know if you wanted to talk about that. Oh, I have two, sorry. I don't need two, Mike.
This is for the bond payments for 2026. We have to do this transfer first before we can approve the audit and the levy. So we always do this transfers for the bond payments for 2026, and it takes into consideration those transfers so that we can move forward with the levy set with those transfers already part of it.
I'd make a motion to approve the transfer.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to approve the transfer. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, then we'll move on to item C. Consider amendments to the ordinance 72, regulations of cannabis and hemp retail businesses and temporary cannabis events.
As touched a little previously at the work session, the main changes to the ordinance is to reflect the state law changes in 2025, allowing cities to accept preliminary license approval by OCM to complete registration. So that's most of the verbiage that you're seeing there, again, is to, instead previously, we could only allow for a full OCM license to do registration. This, we can now accept preliminary license approval. So this is our ordinance amendments to reflect that state law change.
Okay, any questions? Otherwise, I need a motion.
I'll move to approve the amendments to ordinance 72.
All right, do we have a
I'll
second?
second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the amendments to the ordinance 72. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, item D, consider a resolution to approve the Beltline Transportation Project Cost Sharing Agreement.
Council members, this is following up on our previous work session regarding the cost share agreement with the Southwest Corridor, Southwest Beltway. This is just basically the formal approving resolution. The draft language came from the APO. So it's very similar in nature to what the other area cities have adopted, just specialized for our community. But this just, again, codifies the breakdown of the cost sharing that was discussed at the previous work session.
Anybody have any questions?
Get Frank to make that motion.
Well, sure. I'll move to approve the resolution for the Beltline Transportation Project cost sharing agreement.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to approve the resolution. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Then we'll move on to approve the bills.
Move to pay the bills.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to approve paying the bills. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Then we'll do an administrator update.
Just for the audience that might be listening to this meeting, our regularly scheduled meetings in September are a little bit different. So our next regular council meeting will be on September 29th, which will include a work session as well. But we will be hosting a retreat on September 9th with the council, beginning at 4 o'clock at the Ledge. And then we will be hosting a budget work session with the council on September 15th at 4:30 PM at the Ledge. And I think that's all I have.
All right. Adri? Carla? Dave?
No, sir.
John?
Yes, sir.
Bill? Tony?
Nothing.
All right. Then I need a motion to adjourn.
So move.
We have a
Second?
motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Meeting is adjourned at 6:57. This is why.